Our last story was about Noah and what a fine person he was, and how God loved him and how he loved God. Today's story is, what does that matter? Why does it matter that a man that lived long time ago loved God? Well, today's story will certainly tell the answer to that question. When God looked down and he saw the world had turned into a bad place where everyone had bad thoughts all the time, there was Noah there that was still loving God. And God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh shall come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth." Now, it had been 1,800 years of people being bad before God got really tired of what he saw. And he looked down, and only one he could find was Noah. Noah was obeying his will. Now, I don't know how God spoke to Noah at that time. Spoke to many people through the ages, through visions, through dreams, and by having angels come to visit them. Now, the word angel means messenger. So God could send a messenger to Noah and tell him what he wanted him to know. But I really don't think that God ever left heaven, so he used other ways to talk to Noah. And Noah obeyed God when he got the message. And this message was a really big message. The message he got was God was going to destroy the whole world. The people, the plants, the animals, everything. He was going to start over. And we should know that the old world, before Noah, was different from our world. Remember how we talked about creation? We talked about how it was perfect or nearly perfect, when God created it. Well, God does things different from the way we think of things. I don't even think that there was any mountains in the world at that time. I don't think there was any canyons at that time. There may have been slight hills or things that made the world look beautiful, but we are going to find out how God changed the whole old world into a new world. And he was going to destroy it, the old world, with water. Now, water has a lot of power. When it starts flooding even in a small spot, it can cause lots of damage. But God made this flood the biggest, most powerful flood of all of time, and destructive. But he didn't want to destroy everyone, because he had found one person, one family that had been obedient. God expects us to be obedient to him and to love him. And that's what Noah did. He loved God. He didn't argue with God. He didn't question God. And so when God told him that he was going to destroy the world, Noah didn't argue with him. He probably asked him, okay. Because he had never seen rain. As far as we know, there had never been rain in this old world. The old world was watered by mist or a fog, but there wasn't any rain. So that was one of the big changes. We have rain now every once in a while. And we have mist now too. So we know it's wet and it can water our flowers. But this was something very, very different for all the people. And the reason I'm saying that is because Noah had to figure out what was going to be different, and that God was going to destroy the world. He had to figure that out in his head first. And then he had to follow the instructions that God gave him. He says, I want you to build an ark. An ark is a boat. It's kind of, and I think this one was kind of like a barge because it didn't have to go anyplace. It just had to float. And the Bible doesn't tell us how long it took Noah to build that ark, but quite a while, I'm sure, because he followed all of God's instructions. And the instructions, I'm not going to read them to you, except in little pieces. He built the boat from gopher wood. What is gopher wood? Nobody knows, but it was a word that God used in the language that he talked to Noah. And then when they tried to translate it, they didn't know what that word meant. So they just said gopher. But I'll tell you what, it was the perfect kind of wood for the perfect job that Noah had to do. Noah followed everything that God said to do. Everything. And he didn't argue, and he didn't fuss. You know what he did? When he realized that the whole world was going to be destroyed, he tried to tell people. He tried to tell them so much. Please don't sin and don't be violent. And they would just laugh at him because he was building a big old boat, probably in the middle of a field that had no water, no river close to it. And they thought that he was funny. And he, all the while, and it probably took years to build, I don't know how many, the Bible doesn't tell us. But what that boat did, it would not leak. It would not sink because God planned it. God does everything the right way, the wise way. A little bit about the boat or the ark. He was to make it, the length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. What's a cubit? Well, the cubit is the length between, on a man's arm, from the elbow, they did it. It was probably about 18 inches. So we figured that the length of the ark was about 300 cubits, is what it says. Well, that is about the length of a football field and a half of another one. So if you walk the distance of a football field and then back to the 50-yard line, that's how long the ark was. And then the breadth or the width was 50 cubits wide, and the height was 30 cubits. And it had 3 floors, so that was pretty big. And it had 1 window at the top. Now people argue whether that was just one cubit big or 1 air hole all the way around. So, you know, we don't get all the details in the Bible from reading it, because we have an imagination that we can figure out what it might have looked like. So they were to pitch it with pitch, or to kind of paint it on the inside with pitch. Pitch is what comes out of trees. That's the sticky stuff. And the sticky stuff, when it dries, becomes hard stuff. And so it had the inside and out painted with that sticky stuff that comes out of trees. And that would keep it from leaking. And then he told him to collect, or to put inside the ark when it was time, 2 of every animal. 2 animals, a mama and a daddy and a mama, to where they could make animal families when they came back out of the ark. Well, you know what? God did everything so wisely. People have guessed, and it's my guess, that all the animals were young animals, where they wouldn't take up very much space. And maybe they slept while they were on the ark. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us that. But God did it in such a way that those animals could live a year in that ark. Those people could live a year in the ark. However he did it, he had the plan. He always had the right plan, because he knew how to save the world with Noah's Ark.